Welcome to Make Today Count, your 20 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host Ross Dean, and each episode I chat to thought leaders, influencers and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go that extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them, powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 12 of Make Today Count, and today we have Joanne Malocca. Joanne Malocca is a registered dietitian based in Ipswich. She has a postgraduate certificate in eating disorders, a master's degree in community healthcare, and is the chair of the East of England branch of the British Dietetic Association. After witnessing again and again the futility of weight loss diets, Joanne established her blog, Anti-Diet Answers, to coach her clients to rebuild a healthy relationship with food, find satisfaction in their meals, and actually enjoy food again. Joanne hails from County Louth in Ireland and is really enjoying the marvellous local produce that Suffolk has to offer. Joanne, great to have you here. How are you?
Hey Ross, thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, I really appreciate your time. And, you know, we find ourselves in January, and I think this conversation that we're going to have, I've been really looking forward to it because I think it's a kind of a bugbear for a lot of people. It's a time where people are kind of trying lots of different diets and all sorts of different things, and maybe they're getting the results they want and maybe they're not. And so it's a perfect time to have this conversation. I'm really excited to have you on today. If people haven't come across the work that you did before, can you just give us a little bit of information about kind of your background and how you got to where you are today?
Yes, certainly. So I graduated as a dietitian coming up to 6 years ago now. And I got into dietetics because I was always so interested in the why behind the decisions that we make about food.
Yeah.
So there's so much information out there about what we should eat, what's the best diet, what's going to prevent disease, make us live longer, make us all around better people. But very little about the why behind the choices that we make. And I wondered, if there's all this information out there about what we're supposed to eat, why don't we all have perfect diets? Why do we still have a quote unquote obesity epidemic? And why are people struggling with the likes of binge eating, comfort eating, and then eating disorders in general? So I started off by helping people to lose weight. So I would see people in my clinic and I would coach them on how to achieve weight loss. And some did really well. So some people sailed through and they met their weight loss goals without any troubles, any barriers. They just sailed through. And honestly, those were people who maybe had gotten to middle age and who had never experienced diets before. They'd never been on a diet before. And those people were certainly in the minority. But the majority really struggled with weight loss, and they often had been on diets their entire adult lives. So I'm talking 20, 30, 40 years of dieting.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
And yet had still found themselves in my office. So clearly it hadn't worked. And when I spoke to these people and I looked deeply at their relationship with food, it became clear that their relationship with food was completely off balance. And there was a lot of emotional eating, binge eating, comfort eating going on. And needless to say, their weight actually increased when they tried to lose weight because they were suffering with all these other behaviors.
Yeah.
So now I prioritize helping my clients develop a healthy relationship with food. So I teach them to listen to their own hunger and fullness, and to eat in accordance with what their body wants and needs in that moment. And not to look to external sources, not to look to diet plans or apps or any other external force to tell them what to eat. Because believe it or not, we're born with the ability to know how much, what, and when to eat. But somewhere along the way, we lose that ability. So I work with clients to just get in touch with those bodily intuitions again.
You know, as you mentioned there, Joanne, we sort of, when we spoke offline, we we were chatting about, it's January now. People are kind of looking to maybe enhance their diets or the way that they eat after the festive season, and we're bombarded with all these different things. But in the majority, it's mainly sort of commercials on TV, aimed at kind of commercial-led diets or these apps. Why do we turn to these sort of options rather than sort of good rounded advice, do you think?
Good, really, really good question. And honestly, I think it stems from the fact that as a nation and as a culture, we're just less impatient now. If you want a taxi, just get on your app and order an Uber, and it'll be here in probably 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Or food delivery services, we have Deliveroo. Or if you need like I bought yesterday a USB key and it arrived today using Amazon Prime. We know what we want and we want it right now. And it's the same with losing weight. And commercial diet companies, they know that. They know that we want results without any of the graft, any hard work, any workouts, any inconvenience to our lives at all. That's what we want. And they offer us this what I call a microwavable result. So the results without any of the hard work, any of the graft. So it's the commercial companies know what we want, and they just kind of offer us that. And they offer us these nicely put together packages.
Yeah,
with
it's exactly that. I think this is all that we kind of to see. I've noticed it. Just after Christmas, all the adverts that you see, across the TV on all the channels are all aimed at kind of new year, new you type scenarios where they're almost saying that what you're doing now isn't right and you should be doing this, which is following their plan, or and there's different ways. I've seen ways in which things are being rebranded, to maybe appeal to new people, and it's as you say, it's frustrating because it's kind of it's working on the things that we're looking for, because we want that kind of quick fix. But why is it do you think we just keep coming back to these kind of diets? In my experience, for people that I've known that have kind of followed these similar commercial diets, they would do it for a period of time. Maybe they'd lose a period of weight, and then they would get fed up with it perhaps, and then they go back to eating the way they were, and then maybe they put in even more weight. Why do you think we kind of accept that? And we kind of, because it's almost, for me, from my point of view, it almost seems as though we know it's not going to work, but we do it anyway. And then we just keep coming back to it, maybe every January, year on year. Why do you think that is, do you think?
I think it just comes down to clever marketing.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, but I think that is the real reason the diet industry has succeeded in making us believe that it wasn't you that failed the diet. Sorry, apologies. It wasn't the diet that failed you.
Yeah.
It was you that couldn't succeed at the diet, and it's you're to blame. And that this diet works. This diet is the magic bullet, but you just haven't done it right.
Yeah.
So we hang on to that hope that this new diet is going to be the one that's going to work. We just haven't nailed it on the head yet, but this one is going to be the magic bullet. When in fact, go on.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, and we all know what you were going to say next, but it's not the case, is it?
No.
And then we just go around in circles and circles, and until we just kind of guess, we lose heart. We feel that maybe, we'll never be able to, if the goal is kind of shifting some weight or changing our body type composition or something like that, we sort of think we're sort of at a bit of a loss, and we just end up going round and round. I touched upon there a little bit around, in my experience, for people that I've known that have been on these diets, why they haven't been sustainable for a long period of time. And that seems to be kind of a common thread with a lot of these, in that, people do them for a period of time, maybe they lose some considerable weight, but then they find that they just can't carry on with it. Why? Go into a little bit more detail. Why is it? What's the kind of makeup of that, and why does that happen?
It's multifactorial. Firstly, on just like a broader scale, like a broader view of things,
Yeah.
Can you imagine counting calories when you're 65?
No, I don't think I'll be bothered at that point.
Well, this is it. You know, these diets, they're not set up in a way that's going to carry you through for the rest of your life. They're set up to sort out the quote unquote the problem of weight gain that you're experiencing now without any consideration of the long term.
Yeah.
And then on a physiological side of things, when we embark on a diet, we usually reduce our carbohydrate intake in some way. So that can be reduce the amount of bread you eat, pasta, rice, or like sugary carbs, like added sugar, sweets, chocolate, that kind of thing. Usually those foods see a reduction in some way, shape, or form. And when we reduce those carbs is quite a bulky molecule, so it holds a lot of water. Okay. So when we reduce the amount of carbohydrates that we eat, we lose a lot of water quite quickly. So when you step on the scales after a week of your new diet, you are so pleased. You're exclaiming, "Oh, I've lost weight. It's working. It's really working for me. I've nailed it on the head. This is it." Of course, that was a normal physiological response to a reduced carb intake, and it does plateau there. It doesn't continue on. So when people stop seeing the reduction in the number on the scales on a regular basis, they lose hope and think that, oh, it worked for a while, but now it's not working anymore, and just revert back to how they were eating before.
So is it that our body kind of plateaus? There's a point where it kind of would plateau, and then it wouldn't kind of go, we wouldn't lose much more weight after that point? Or does it depend on kind of what they're doing?
There is a theory called set point weight theory, which summarizes that our natural weight is held at a particular point, and that number only fluctuates maybe 10 pounds each way.
Wow,
and to push past your set point weight is very difficult to do, and to maintain even more difficult.
So would the set point weight be taken from, I'm guessing, lots of different factors depending on our makeup and our individual kind of composition? Would that be right?
Absolutely. Your DNA, your lifestyle, your age as well. Unfortunately, the set point weight tends to increase as you get older. And that's due to a metabolic downplay. When we get older, our metabolism is just reduced slightly. So trying to push past that set point weight will leaves us feeling disappointed, because it's physiological. I won't say impossible, because there's always going to be the minority who can do it, but for the majority of us, it's not going to be achievable.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that, eating in this way for a long period of time, does it have any particular kind of, have any effects on the body itself, eating this way, when it's not kind of full of all the different food groups?
Mm-hmm. Well, dieting is one of the main causes of weight gain. Hang on.
We've got to stop there. This is crazy. Go into more detail. You need to say that. You need to say that again, because I think a lot of people have probably pulled over to the side of the road now, and they're thinking, right, I want to listen to what she's saying now, because I've been doing this diet for so long. Okay, so carry on. Sorry, I just needed to cut in.
I had a mentor once who said to me that she says to her clients, "Oh, so you're on a diet. How much weight are you planning to gain? Not how much you're planning to lose, but how much are you planning to gain?" Wow. And what's going on there is, when we lose, so when we begin to lose weight, our body taps into our muscle resources to gain protein.
Yeah.
So we lose muscle. We lose some fat also, but we do lose considerable muscle. And I describe this as, it's like imagine you have a fireplace made of wood. Okay, fireplace is made of wood, and you pull from the wooden fireplace to stick it into the fire. Yeah. So you're pulling from your own muscles to give your body energy that you're not getting through food. Yeah. And it's the decreased muscle mass that reduces our metabolic output.
Okay. Yeah.
So instead of burning, say me or you, we would be burning maybe, I don't know, 1,000 calories just by sitting every day. Just for our body to do normal metabolic processes. And that takes a lot of energy. But when you are dieting and you reduce your muscle mass, that number reduces. So instead of it taking 1,000 calories to keep your metabolic processes going, it only takes you now about 800 calories.
Wow, okay.
So when you're on a diet, you reduce your metabolic output. Okay, so your body can run now on 800 calories. So when you've had a stressful day, or you have had a rough day at the office, or you have a lot of life stress going on, and at that point you just say, you know what, sod it, I can't stick with this diet anymore, I need real food. You then revert back to your old calorie intake. You revert back to having increased calories. Say you jump straight into a bucket of ice cream because the stress has just gotten too much. But remember, your body is running on lower calories now. So it's going to have extra calories from whatever you eat, say the ice cream, to store it. So you're going to be storing fat again. And hence why weight gain increases. So that's one reason. That's the metabolic reason why dieting leads to weight gain.
Yeah.
Then, of course, diets are actually a form of stress on our bodies. So dieting is considered a stress. It's a stressful process for our bodies to go through, because remember, we're not built to diet. We are not built to lose weight. We are built for survival. So dieting is a form of stress on our bodies. And even some of my clients tell me that, firstly, they go to bed early to try and quell cravings. Say, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I'm just going to go to bed, because going to sleep is a time machine for breakfast. That's what I heard. And they would actually wake up really suddenly in the middle of the night feeling as though they could run a marathon. Like so much blood and adrenaline pumping through their blood that they really, really feel very, very stressed, and like they're in that fight or flight mode. That core survival mode, and that is that's a response to the extreme calorie restriction. So stress releases a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol encourages weight gain, particularly around the middle. So particularly around the abdominal area. So I often see clients who have been on and off diets their entire lives and hold a lot of weight around that abdominal area. And that is very closely linked to stress and the cortisol response.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And then a third reason why dieting leads to weight gain is because when we hold ourselves in a place of restriction, so when we're on a diet and we are really restricting ourselves of everything that you like all the really good stuff, the chocolate, the sweets, the crisps, everything. So we hold ourselves in a point of restriction. And if you imagine a pendulum, and a pendulum that swings nicely from all the delicious foods that I just mentioned and more lower calorie, kind of bland, boring, but healthy foods, the pendulum swings nicely between the both. But when you take the pendulum and you hold it in a place of restriction, so you hold it over to the side of the low calorie, the bland, the healthy food, and that's what your diet is made up of. What do you think is going to happen when that pendulum slips? And say, example, with the stressful day, it will swing right over to the other side. And when you, as your example, when you've had a stressful day and, you've said, Soda, I can't keep up with the diet anymore. Usually what happens is you don't just have one, quote unquote, a blowout and just, have one meal off the diet. Usually that results then in like a cycle of binge eating and then restricting and then binge eating again. And unfortunately, that then does lead to weight gain over time. But it is our physiological response to having that pendulum in the restriction end of things. As our bodies are not built to lose weight. So whenever we get the chance to increase that calorie intake again, that's when the binge eating, the uncontrollable eating takes hold, and all of which leads to weight gain.
So where do you think many of us are going wrong? Do you think, Joanne? Because, if we're not following a specific diet in trying to lose weight, and from what you're saying, it sounds as though we need to sort of listen to our bodies and be intuitive and kind of feed it with what it wants at whatever time. Why is it that many of us are kind of in a space where maybe we'd like to lose weight, or we find ourselves a bit more heavy than we feel we should be? Why is that?
So where are we going wrong? Well, firstly, I think that the goals that we're setting for ourselves are just way out of reach.
Okay.
And remember what I said about the set point weight theory. Often our weight targets will be way lower than that. And we have this ideal version of ourselves. We think that future us or future Joanne has everything figured out in relation to food and lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I have been guilty of this. If you ever go to a supermarket on a Sunday evening and you look at people's trolleys, usually on a Sunday evening, they're filled with lots of fruit and veg, lots of produce, lots of the healthier side of things, and not the other the other delicious higher calorie foods.
It's always Monday. We're going to start from Monday.
Yeah. So the goals we set ourselves are way out of reach. Like, you say to yourself, okay, I'm never eating chocolate again.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. every morning and run 5K every single day.
Yeah.
So we set ourselves up for failure by setting these really strict goals or lifestyles. And I think that's the beginning of where we're going wrong, is that, we set ourselves way too high of a goal, and it's just not achievable. It's not realistic for us to get to. We get disheartened, and then we just go back to old ways.
Yeah, and I guess these decisions are made, from an emotional point of view, aren't they? If we feel that we need to be a certain way, or we need to be a certain weight, I think a lot of people kind of focus on the scales a lot of the time, and I think they have to be a certain weight. It can be it's very emotionally led, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Emotions play a huge role in deciding what, when, and how much that we eat. And we have lots of coping mechanisms for our emotions. Some people turn to like watching lots of TV to kind of drown out that emotional noise in their head. Other people turn to alcohol, other people turn to drugs. So food is one coping mechanism, and that's fine. It's okay to emotionally eat sometimes. But what I say to my clients who are struggling with emotional eating is, have something else in your toolbox for coping with emotional eating. Don't just leave it down to food. Look for nurturance from your partner or your family. Go get a hug off someone that you love. Talk to them. Walk the dog. Have some delicious food as well. Have a slice of cake, couple of biscuits, whatever you want, but don't rely on that to soothe your emotions.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like from what I hear, we're almost going down a more holistic kind of approach, similar to lots of different areas of life at the moment, isn't it? We're able to look at all the things, because when you were speaking a little bit before about going to bed early so you don't have the cravings, and then that then affects your sleep, and then if your sleep is deprived, then that has other effects and all these different things, and there's just so many kind of knock-on reactions to a lot of these things. It's crazy, and it all stems from kind of, I guess, the way that we kind of talk to ourselves, and in that way. So say for example, you've got someone coming in the clinic. So let's talk about alternatives. And you've got someone coming into the clinic, and maybe they've tried, countless they've tried all the different commercial diets there have. They've got the apps, they've got the ebooks, they've got they've watched all the videos, and they've gone on that kind of yo-yoing kind of journey. So what alternatives do we have then? If diet in those commercial sense diets aren't the best way to go, what kind of route do you take your clients down when they're just kind of at a loss as to what to do next?
It does differ case by case, and I'll always consider the individual person. But what I like to focus on is engaging in a conversation with that individual about their goals. So, okay, they tell me, I want to lose 10 kilos. And I'll say, okay, why do you want to lose 10 kilos?
Yeah.
And they'll say, oh, I just do. I'm like, okay. How will life be better when you lose 10 kilos? What's going to change? And, people have very valid reasons for wanting weight loss, which is absolutely fine, health and, for their own self-esteem. And, that's all fine. But I just like to unpack the reasons behind seeking weight loss. And once we have come to, I guess, an agreement that this person wants to improve their health, I'll say to them, let's take weight out of the picture entirely.
Okay.
Let's not focus on weight at all. Let's look at some non-weight goals that we can work towards. So I'll focus on the health behaviors. I'll focus on things like what you said, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, getting regular physical activity, not smoking, not drinking too much alcohol. And then when it comes to the food, which of course is my domain, and even though this is a holistic approach, I still am pro food and pro nutrition. We'll focus in on starting to include foods that person actually enjoys. And I'll ask them a revolutionary question, which they haven't been asked before, certainly not by a healthcare professional. And that question is, what do you actually like to eat?
They're probably speechless at that point, I would imagine.
Absolutely speechless. I read a statistic recently that said upwards of 50% of women feel guilty for eating foods they actually enjoy.
Yeah. I'd say that men as well. I can relate to that. I think it's across the board. I think we're told consistently that certain food types are bad. I mean, for ages when I don't know too much, but my recollection is when diets came in, it was very sort of fat is bad, carbs are bad, obviously, and that was all we've been taught, and unfortunately that was the kind of education we even got in school. That followed wherever that came from. So it's crazy, and we just I think we just find ourselves sort of resenting the fact that we actually like some of these things and beating ourselves up too much about it.
And I'm sure some of your listeners can completely agree with this.
Yeah.
And it's assumed that if we actually allow ourselves to eat foods that we enjoy, we're going to become out of control monsters, and we won't be able to stop eating that food. But remember that pendulum again. When you hold yourself in restriction for very, very long, when that pendulum slips, you are going right over to the other side, and you're going to stay there for just as long as you're restricted for.
Yeah.
So, it's assumed that we're going to not be able to stop eating, but actually that doesn't happen. It may happen for the first while you're back reintroducing foods that you actually like.
Okay, yeah.
But over time, once you allow yourself to eat those foods again, the desire to eat them in an uncontrollable, unhealthy way tends to dissipate. And food, delicious foods, say a piece of cake, has like the same, how can I say, it's the same like morality as a healthier food. Say, I don't know, carrot maybe.
Yeah.
Because this guilt that we are feeling is mirrored in our language as well. I bet that some of your listeners have said things to themselves like, oh, I shouldn't order cake with coffee. oh, I'm naughty because I had a dessert, or oh, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna, have, I'm gonna have something that's good. Salad is good, cake is bad.
Yeah.
So when you
And then when you
yeah,
have cake, you're thinking, I'm bad.
I'm bad as well. Yeah.
And
And we put cake high up on this pedestal as having this power over us because we
Mm.
want cake, but cake is bad. So therefore, if we have it, we're bad. And, food develops this morality. This concept of good and bad foods exists when the thing is, all foods fit. All foods should be included and all foods play a role in our diet.
Mm.
Some are more nutritious for our bodies. I'm not disputing that by any count.
Of
But I'm
course, yeah.
also not denying that the high fat, high sugar cakes and biscuits and sweets, that I'm not denying those foods play a role in our lives.
Yeah.
It's those foods that give us satisfaction, that actually, make us say to ourselves, oh, you know what, I feel like I've had a nice meal and I finished it off with a couple of biscuits and now I feel content, I feel satisfied. I'm not going to think of food now until I'm hungry for my next meal.
Mm. It almost sounds as if, if we just allow ourselves to be comforted by what we enjoy, then we're able to just relax into, because once we've had it, we're quite content, aren't we? We might not want it for however how long, but I think it's that continual kind of stress where you mentioned it before earlier on in the podcast, that stress that it puts on the body, which just is kind of continually winding up within us, because we can't have these things that we really love.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is especially important for like you and your listeners, because you have a lot of stuff to get through during the day.
Yeah.
And when you are restricting yourself, it's very difficult to think of anything else but food. And that's because your brain is trying to get you to eat something to nourish it, to nourish your body, and to be working at an optimum level. So when you're on a diet, it's very hard to get food off the brain. And when my clients leave diets in the past, they tell me that they don't know what to do with all this new headspace. So much of their headspace was taken up with food, calories. When can I eat again? Even if they've just eaten, when can I eat again? So it's a real gift to give that back to people, because life is more about weight and food and what we eat. Life is more than that. So to give that back to them is a real gift.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely relate in that I've kind of looked at the way that I've been eating and been moving over the past kind of few months, and it's been revelationary, really. And just the fact that I'm now eating more than I've ever eaten, but the benefits have been astounding. I found myself in a position where I don't particularly crave certain things because I'm comfortable that if I want to choose to have them at any time, I can. As long as you just keep an even keel and be moderate, as and when you can't be sitting there eating cake, breakfast, dinner, and tea. But when you allow yourself to kind of have that comfort that you can have it if you want to, exactly what you were saying, your mind shifts and you're able to concentrate on other things, and it's not an issue anymore. I think it's just something that just comes naturally, and you feel that your body is being nourished in the way that it needs to for you to get the most out of your day. That's my experience of that over the past few months, personally.
Spot on.
So one of the other things I touched upon there is kind of movement, and we all kind of hear that it comes down to two things. It becomes to you eat less and move more. That's the kind of the thing that we're always told. The way to kind of to lose weight or to be more comfortable in your composition. What are your thoughts around movement, and is that something that you kind of bring into the conversation when you're speaking to your clients?
Absolutely. I address it all the time. And exercise or movement is extremely beneficial without any weight loss at all. You don't have to be losing weight for exercise to be beneficial. And actually, I kind of pare this down to a very simple concept, which again is revolutionary for my clients, I say to them, the secret to enjoying movement is to completely uncouple it from weight loss. So completely separate the two.
See, that's pretty mind blowing, because it just naturally comes with it, doesn't it? You know, we think of weight loss or, you know, with movement. It's the first thing that came to my mind, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I think weight loss is quite a neutral way of putting it. I've heard clients tell me that they exercise as a way to compensate for overdoing it, so that they can eat more calories later in the day, or so that they can burn off calories that they've already eaten.
So it's kind of corrective in that way.
Yes, or that's the mentality. But that creates this mindset of punishment.
Yeah.
And that's why some of my clients have told me that they hate exercise, because they have made it out to be a punishment. Ross, do you have any idea what the government recommendation for exercise is? Throw it out there.
I think it's probably is it like an hour 3 times a week?
An hour 3 times a week. Okay, no, it's less than that actually.
Is it?
It's 150 minutes a week.
150 minutes a week. Okay.
Yeah, so about 2.5 hours a week, and that's of a moderate intensity exercise. So, so say if you're going for a walk, still being able to talk to somebody that you're walking with, but being a little bit hot, a little bit.
Out of breath.
Not necessarily out of breath, but maybe you need to take off your scarf, or unzip your jacket. So it's at quite a moderate level. So about 2.5 hours a week at a moderate level, and that doesn't have to be in one chunk, or even in chunks of half an hour. That can be broken down into 10-minute slots throughout the week.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got children, that's just a normal day.
Okay, good. And incorporating movement like that at that level, does reduce the risk of things like dementia, depression, of course, the cardiovascular benefits, heart attacks, strokes, that kind of thing. So I hope that kind of gives your listeners an idea that actually I'm not meant to be doing hours and hours of movement a week, but 10-minute pockets of exercise here and there, is just as beneficial.
I think there's a lot of people having a big sigh of relief now, because they just think, I haven't got to do all these things. And I think you mentioned earlier on as well, it's important that you enjoy the things that you're doing as well. Yeah. Like you said before, disassociating it with weight loss, and then just kind of picking things that you enjoy doing. I think we see advertising and adverts with all these people. They've got their Nike stuff on and they're going out for a run and they're enjoying it. They're all smiles and all that kind of stuff. But if you hate running, I hate running. Yeah. And why would you put yourself through it? if you really hate it, and like you say, you haven't got to do something that's that high intensity to get the benefits, it sounds.
Yeah, it could be something as simple as taking the stairs instead of a lift, or creating a more of an active commute for yourself. So, I don't know, getting the bus, leaving the bus a couple of stops early just so you can walk a bit, or just even being active around the house.
When I guess the great thing about your job is you get to work with so many different types of people, and they've all got their own different reasons why they are or they aren't reaching their goals. What are some of the myths we kind of tell ourselves around kind of why we can't kind of get more positive when it comes to the way that we eat, and maybe why we can't get help with our eating? Is it just because people have just gone round and round in circles for so long, they just don't know where to start? Or is it that, they've just spoken so unhelpful to themselves for such a long time, they just don't feel that they have the energy to try something new? What do you kind of find?
Yeah, I think the diet industry has been really clever at making us feel like it's all our fault that we can't lose weight, and that puts people off. They feel like failures already, so why try again? Yeah. And then, as you said, there is a total confusion about what to eat and how to eat, and all the information that's out there is great, but it's not a substitute for individualized professional help.
Yeah. And for someone that's kind of listening in and maybe they want to try and get some help with looking at what they're eating and then nutrition and all that kind of stuff. What do you suggest people sort of look for when working with someone? So if they were thinking about going to having a bit of a Google search tomorrow and sort of saying, maybe they've gone through all these different things, they feel like they're really, I'm really big on mentors, and that, success leaves clues in that way. So if you're having problems with something, there's no better way to go with someone that's kind of gone through that or has so much experience in that area to really get a feel for what you need to do. What sort of recommendations would you give for choosing someone to work with?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You definitely need somebody that you can vibe with, right? Who understands, who has a mutual understanding of what you're going through. But I would certainly look for somebody with the professional qualification, so a registered dietitian or a qualified nutritionist. So somebody who has, done a 4-year degree at uni plus some postgraduate work, plus has experience in the field that you're trying to master yourself.
Yeah. I was just going to go in there and just say that.
Yeah.
And also you mentioned there about kind of their approach as well. It's important that you kind of, as you mentioned, vibe with them and kind of have a good connection, because it's important that you're both coming from the same place. And, if you're going to be working with them for a period of time, you need to sort of have personalities that kind of resonate with each other, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. And if you don't click with one, say, dietitian, that doesn't mean you're not going to click with any. And if you ever feel judged or stigmatized by any healthcare professional, I think that shows quite a lack of empathy. So, consider seeking another opinion. Don't feel that, that's just your fault or your problem. It just shows that you just need a second opinion and somebody who's a bit more understanding. But luckily, I don't think I've met a dietitian who's been judgmental or doesn't have sympathy. So it's all good. If you've struggled with diets, though, which a lot of my clients have, I would approach a healthcare professional who says that they're weight neutral or describes their policy as being weight neutral. So somebody who's not just going to jump to weight loss as being the answer to your woes. Nobody is disputing that weight loss has benefits. But what I am disputing today, and what is true, is that maintaining long-term weight loss is extremely difficult. And that is backed up by all the research. There's a huge failure rate of diets long-term, considering 5 years or more. So if your healthcare professional is jumping to weight loss has been the answer to all your problems, that's quite a superficial approach, I think.
Yeah. And, for someone that's listening, maybe they haven't been into clinic before, maybe they haven't spent time with someone that is looking at kind of nutrition and that kind of thing. Tell us a little bit about kind of how you work. So would it be sort of an initial consultation, I think you mentioned before, to kind of find out really what their goals have been in the past, and then kind of taking it from there? How would that kind of work with you?
Yeah, I start off by doing almost like a timeline of the individual's life so far. So, I look at key events in that person's life and where food started to become an issue, or, where they identify a period of weight gain or weight loss. And I'm just trying to get a broad picture of the role of food the role that food has played in that person's life.
Yeah.
It's that.
And then, and then going on from there, would it be just like regular check-ins at certain points, or would you kind of set kind of specific goals, or how would that kind of work sort of on a longer term basis?
So we set goals together. It's more effective if my client sets their own goals, because this is something I preach: is you are the expert of you.
Yeah.
I'm here to guide you, but you are the expert of you. So it's more effective if you set your own goals, and I will of course check in with them regularly. But change is a very slow process, and small baby steps is the way to go. And that brings this conversation right back to the beginning where we talked about quick fixes. This is not a quick fix. This is a change of lifestyle for the rest of your life. So any changes that are being made, it's best to make them extremely slow.
That's such a good point to end on. I think I'm getting from the conversation that's the main gist of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Is just these changes, these positive changes. If you're hoping to make them, should be for the rest of your life. They shouldn't be a long-term thing, because you just end up in the same kind of cycle over and over again. And like you say, when you mentioned at the beginning, 65-year-old Ross doesn't want to be following an app as to what he's eating. He wants to be quite happy eating all the foods, sitting there in his home, eating the things that he wants to do and enjoying and going out and all that kind of stuff, and not feeling that he needs to beat himself up about it. So
Yeah.
that's there's been so many takeaways in our conversation today, Joanne. I really appreciate your time, and this has been, I know for certain there'll be a lot of people kind of, as I said, pulling over on the side of the road, stopping what they're doing at work, and really listening in. If people want to kind of get more information about some of the your sort of thoughts around a lot of this stuff, where's the best place to kind of find you?
So I've set up a new website in the last couple of months or so. It's antidieteanswers.com.
Perfect.
Or you can email me at joe@antidieteanswers.com, or Instagram I'm pretty active on as well. So just at antidieteanswers.
Perfect. And you're cool for people to email you and all that kind of
Absolutely. Yes. I love meeting new people, or, I would be happy to speak to people, do like an initial consultation over the phone if people feel that they would like to improve their relationship with food this year.
Well, there you have it, guys. You've heard it. If there's anything that's really resonated you throughout the conversation, and I know there's loads of stuff that I've really taken away from our time together today. So, what I like to do at the end of the podcast is just to give gratitude. I think it's something that's really important. I just wanted to give you gratitude, Joanne, and just give you thanks for just the work that you're doing. I think for a lot of people, especially at this time of year, but also all throughout the year, there's really just a ton of noise, and it all tends to be kind of going the same way, and it just leads them to places where they just don't know where to go. And some of that, I think, is because it's not pretty easy to understand. Some it's all wrapped up in marketing. I think sometimes it's not delivered in a way that's friendly and approachable. And I think from the time that we've spent chatting up until now, I think this is where you're really excelling. And I really do hope that you're able to reach more people, and to kind of spread your kind of thoughts and approach, because I think it's going to help so many people. So just thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Ross. Thank you for your kind words and for giving me a platform to help share my message. Thank you.
No, you're more than welcome. Okay, guys. So what I really would love is that I want to hear your thoughts and your comments on this episode. So if you're able to, leave us some comments either on the social media post where you'll find the episode details, or on the show notes page. And if you go over there, you'll find all the information about Joanne and where to reach her as well. Okay. Also, wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it be Spotify, iTunes, or wherever, please leave us a review, and also remember to subscribe. And also, if maybe you've enjoyed this conversation and maybe you know someone else that maybe has had challenges in this specific area, please feel free to share this episode with them. One of the best things we can do is by sharing knowledge. And if you do that for someone else, it really might change their day. Just before we go, Joanne, the podcast is called Make Today Count. And what I really wanted to achieve from the podcast is to engage people in conversations on topics where maybe they haven't been before, or maybe they have and they've been kind of stuck. And I really wanted them to take away actionable things that they could do that very next day. And we're not talking about massive leaps, because we all know that doesn't work. It's just about small, manageable steps. So if people wanted to kind of take away one small step that they could do tomorrow, that maybe they've gone round, they've done the yo-yo diet and all that kind of stuff, and they just want to take one small step to go in a direction that may be more beneficial for them, what would that be, do you think?
Oh, it's hard to choose just one, but I think my main message is summarized nicely in: if you want to make a lifestyle change, don't make any changes that you can't see yourself doing for the rest of your life.
I think that's perfect. That's a perfect way to end the podcast. I've got my soundbite. This is amazing. Okay.
Great.
Thank you so much, Joanne. It's been really great. I really appreciate your time. And I know that there's going to be all tangents where we could go off in this conversation in all different areas, and I hope that we can do this again at another point in time. So thank you so much.